people all over the United States are being affected by sports-related injuries. I'm gonna guarantee, or I'm gonna probably guess that most of you have either been injured in a sport before, or you know somebody who has. Um, you would actually be surprised on how often it actually happens, and all the information available online on how you can prevent it, and how you can also like the symptoms and how you can decide, or how you can most people don't know that the effects of these injuries though, and how they can affect your life, like in the future or right after they happen. So what I'm gonna talk about are different injuries and what they actually mean. I'm also going to talk about the effects, like the short-term and long-term effects of these injuries, what you're going to experience if you get one of these injuries, and then I'm going to talk about easy steps on how to prevent these injuries from happening. Um, First thing I'm going to talk about are different types of injuries. The first type of injury I'm going to talk about are sprain and strains. A sprain and strains are when a muscle or a ligament is overstretched, slightly torn, or completely torn. This is a very common injury. It usually happens in joint areas such as the knee or an ankle. It can happen in your shoulder. Um, You might know it most commonly as a knee injury as like somebody tearing their ACL or MCL. That's a very common one that you hear kids talk about a lot. Average recovery time takes it can take anywhere from 2 weeks to up to a year, depending if you have like how severely it is. If it's just overstretched, it could take 2 weeks, and most kids are usually back playing sports like within the 2 weeks. But if you completely tear a muscle, that usually requires surgery, and that could take you out of athletics like for a while or permanently. The next injury I'm going to talk about is dislocation. Dislocations are when a joint, oh, that's the strain, that's like where the muscle is completely torn. Dislocations are when a joint comes completely out of place. In my pictures, this is a knee, and you can see like the ball of the joint is completely not where it's supposed to be. And then this is the shoulder, and you can see the ball is out of the socket. Some of these, when you get a dislocation, it can sometimes do the same thing as a strain is, where it overstretches, slightly tears, or completely tears the muscle, and it also can affect the bone depending on how it is put back into place. Healing can take about 1 week if nothing is damaged when it comes out of place and put back into place, but sometimes it does require surgery and can take you out for several months. The next injury I'm going to talk about are fractures and breaks. A fracture and a break is when a bone is chipped, cracked, snapped, or completely just taken apart, like apart. Both usually require a cast or a brace after these happen. If it, Depending on this, like the kind of break, if there's just a hairline fracture, you just have to wear a cast, and you're probably out of the sport for a couple months. And then if it's a compound fracture, like this, it usually requires surgery and can take you out of sports for several months, and you'll have to have surgery, which will make it very annoying for when you go through metal detectors and stuff like that, because you have to have metal screws, and those will stay there for the rest of your life. It can also take you out of sports because of this injury. The last one I'm going to talk about are concussions. Concussions are when your head or your brain smashes into the front of your head, like the front of your skull into the back of your skull, and it causes your brain to be bruised or swell up, and that's what causes the headaches. And you'll be out of sports for about a week to 2 weeks, depending on when it happens and how often it's happened. After I think state law requires you after 3 concussions that you cannot participate in sports no longer, or at least contact sports. I'm not sure about track, but that is the main types of injuries. Now that I've told you a little bit about injuries, I'm going to talk about different are some of the effects of these injuries and what you will experience when these happen. For sprains and strains, you're probably going to experience throbbing pain, which is going to be severe. You're going to feel it like throughout your bones and stuff like that. So you'll notice it. It's going to be hard to move or hard to like put pressure onto the affected area. And after the injury has occurred and wearing the splint and brace, you'll experience weakness and stiffness. Dislocations are very similar to that because you have similar things that happen to it. The throbbing, hard to move, you'll definitely notice there. Fractures and breaks, you'll experience a sharp pain, and it could go like up your arm, for instance, if you break your wrist. You could experience swelling and weak after you have surgery or from the cast. Concussions are way different than the following injuries because you could be unconscious after it has happened, and you probably have major headaches, but it doesn't last as long. And right after it happens, you can also experience dizziness for a week or so. Now I'm going to talk about some long-term effects. For sprain and strain, they're usually weaker in that area, so it is easier to get another injury, and dislocations are the same. You know, it's easier for it to be dislocated again. I know people that their shoulders will pop out of place just randomly because of the weakened muscle. Fractures and breaks, you'll have the pin, so it's a little annoying. It could affect the way you move. Concussions, they could cause brain damage and other things like that, I guess. But the easy way to prevent these with gear is wear the correct size, take precautions like the stretching, taping, or rest when you feel fatigued, and call a doctor if you don't think something's not right, such as swelling or major pain. Injuries happen all the time. Be careful and take the right steps to stop these from happening because they could affect the rest of your life.